Hi everyone, I'm Rick Beato. Today's episode is part 3 of my series on the history of the guitar. The first episode, entitled The Guitar 1929 through 69, focused on the development of the guitar spanning the genres of classical, blues, country, rock, and jazz guitar. Part 2 was actually split between two videos. The first was the Guitar 1970 through 79, the Decade of Legends, which focused mainly on the genres of blues, country, and rock, and was immediately followed by Guitar Gods of the 70s. That video explored the more eclectic guitarists of the 70s, such as John McLaughlin, Allan Holdsworth, Al Di Meola, and Pat Metheny. In this episode, the Guitar 1980 through 1989 Guitar Heroes, I've decided to focus solely on rock and metal guitarists because of the sheer number of them. I've broken them down into 4 categories: innovators, shredders, blues bass players, and super shredders. If some of you think I may have forgotten someone inadvertently or could have grouped them differently, leave a comment below. Depending on the comments, I may do an update to this video, in which case I will put in the description the names of the people that gave me the suggestions for either the players that I omitted, or if I need to move some of the players to a different category or even create a new category. I'd like to start off with the super shredders. These are people with superhuman technique. When I think of super shredders, the first person that comes to mind is Shawn Lane. Shawn tragically died at the young age of 40 after a long illness, but his playing continues to inspire players today. Next, I'd like to move to Swedish guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen. He's had a career that spanned over 40 years, and his musical style is what is known as neoclassical metal. Let's check it out. You can hear in that clip that Yngwie was very influenced by classical music. Composers like Paganini, who was a violin virtuoso from the 18th century. Many of the neoclassical style players came up through Shrapnel Records. Now, Shrapnel Records was Mike Varney's label, which was begun in 1980. Shrapnel Records had an incredible roster of artists and bands, including the group Cacophony, which featured Jason Becker and my good friend Marty Friedman on guitar. When Nuno Bettencourt came on the scene with Extreme self-titled record in the late 80s, this tune, Play With Me, was a solo that people still talk about today. Let's check it out. Here are some of the other super shredders you need to know. Guitarists that I'd also put in the super shredder category that are not neoclassical in nature are Blue Saraceno, Greg Howe, and Reb Beach. Let's check them out. Next, I'd like to move to the blues bass guitar category. A perfect example of this is AC/DC guitarist Angus Young. Let's check him out. The next two guitarists were in a huge band from the 70s that had a big comeback in the late 80s. We have Joe Perry and Brad Whitford from Aerosmith. In the late 60s and early 70s, when we thought of Les Paul, Jimmy Page came to mind. But that changed in 1987 when Appetite for Destruction was released. Next on the list, we have Slash. Here's a clip from an amazing performance of Jeff Healey on The David Letterman Show. I remember when Sultans of Swing first came on the radio when I was in 10th grade. Here's a clip from Money for Nothing. It's Mark Knopfler with Dire Straits. Brian Setzer made rockabilly famous again with the Stray Cats. Guitarist Gary Moore shared the stage with everyone, from Thin Lizzy to B.B. King to Albert King. Bon Jovi guitarist Richie Sambora's guitar style was also heavily influenced by blues. This next category, it took me a while to come up with a title for. I'm still not sure that it's the right one. I just simply call them the Shredders. They're guys that were band members of famous bands, typically, and they were great guitar players. Guys like Phil Collen from Def Leppard, or Vito Bratta, or George Lynch, or Jakey Lee, Zakk Wylde. You know, Doug Aldridge, Brad Gillis, people like that were band members that were also great guitar players. I'm going to play them just in succession so you can kind of get a feel for what each of these players was about. Let's check it out.